The Galactic Council's central chamber glowed with the dull gold of antiquity, polished smooth by centuries of squabbling. 13 council members sat around the crescent-shaped table, each representing a dominant race in the galaxy's fragile peace. They wore ceremonial robes, fragrant oils, and the strained expressions of creatures forced to tolerate one another. But today, they shared something rare, a common concern. Humans, growled Overseer Vrel of the Zervath Dominion, his mandibled mouth clicking with distaste. They breed unpredictability like spores in decay, and now they demand a seat at this council. Archon Cellari, the serpentine diplomat from the Lotan Alliance, shifted her coils. They did not demand. They offered suggestions, which we all know is human code for or else, snapped Vrel. The Trinvok delegate let out a slow trill of amusement. Your paranoia is amusing, Vrel. They are a child race. Loud, curious, tragically short-lived. Let them yap until they exhaust themselves. They defeated the Jurikai in 3 months, Vrel said. The Jurikai ruled their quadrant for 3 centuries. We lost half our trade ships when the Jurikai fell. A quiet cleared the chamber. Then, from the far end, the human ambassador stood. Short by comparison, unarmored, unadorned, wearing only a plain gray suit and a gentle smile that did not reach her eyes. Good afternoon, she said, almost sweetly. I understand there are concerns. Nobody answered. She nodded anyway. I'll be sure to pass your anxieties along to General Mira Holt. She's quite good with worry. General Holt, Vrel said carefully, is a soldier, not a stateswoman. Then it's very fortunate, the ambassador said, smile sharpening, that we humans find little difference between the two when survival's at stake. She bowed. Too low, too precise, and left without waiting to be dismissed. Back in the shadows of the chamber, a whispered voice asked, Did she threaten us? No, Cellari hissed. She invited us to be smarter. In the war-torn sector known as the Violet Reach, aboard a quiet outpost labeled simply Seraphis 3, General Mira Holt sat in a rocking chair on her balcony. Below, the moons of the planet turned slow pirouettes over forested canyons and ancient ruins that predated the council itself. Her tea was steeping. A faint breeze carried the earthy tang of moss and iron. She wore slippers, the kind with fluff around the ankles. Her hair was tucked into a loose bun, and a notepad sat on her lap, filled with doodles of escape vectors and pressure vulnerabilities of various council species. Next to the notepad, a half-finished crossword puzzle. General, said Colonel Reyes, entering from the glass doors. Latest chatter on the deep relays confirms an uptick in council activity. They're moving assets. Quietly, Mira hummed. Quiet's always relative, isn't it? Especially when politicians whisper with dread. Reyes shifted uneasily. We've detected a possible covert insertion team, approaching through G-type blind spots. 3 hours out. She turned a page in her notepad. Zervath, most likely. Maybe Trinvok mercs. Both favor night operations and underestimating women with teacups. You're taking this very well. I'm flattered they're acting sooner than expected. She took a slow sip. I must have annoyed them. Good. They learn faster when scared. You want us to raise perimeter shields? No. Let them in. Reyes blinked. Ma'am. She smiled. No one understands the value of hospitality anymore. The assassins came at 2:11 standard outpost time. 6 elite operators, garbed in adaptive skinsuits that distorted optics and mass scent. 2 Zervath. 1 Lotan coil assassin, a pair of Trinvok death twins, minds linked, movements mirrored, and 1 floating horror from the deep void worlds, a being of psychic fog and vaporized bone. They entered through ventilation systems, bypassed dormant sensors, and deployed dampeners that silenced their steps and killed comms. It was, according to every standard in the Assassin's Handbook, a flawless insertion. Their mission was simple. Eliminate General Mira Holt. No witnesses. No trace. They spread through the command compound like ink and water. At 2:23, the Lotan operative entered the greenhouse conservatory. The air was rich with earth basil and tomato vines. Something creaked softly in the shadows. A wooden sound. Unnatural here. The operative paused. Her tongue tasted the air. From the dark, a soft voice. You are very graceful. I almost didn't hear you. The assassin twisted. Too slow. A flash. A hiss. Her vision fractured. Blood bloomed across the soil. Then silence. By 2:31, the Trinvok twins reported loss of signal with the others. They moved in mirror, fast, silent, sure. In the main hallway, a piano note echoed. Just one. Then another. Out of tune. A slow, limping melody. What is that? One thought. Primitive music, came the reply. Ignore it. But then laughter. Not loud. Not cruel. Just amused. Human. They turned a corner. The corridor ended in a mirror. One twin touched it. It wasn't a mirror. It was a door. It opened. Neither twin emerged. At 2:47, the vapor being hovered over the central command deck. Screens were blank. Lights dimmed. The vapor moved like thought, seeping under doors, curling around corners. It found the teacup first. Still warm. A rocking chair, gently swaying. Then it felt presence. Unshielded. Bold. A whisper behind it. You smell of rot and regret. The creature struck. The room detonated in white. When the smoke cleared, there was only a metal thermos labeled Midnight Blend. And a note, written in Galactic common. You sent ghosts to my home. I returned them to yours. Back in the council chamber, chaos reigned. No word from the strike team. Traces of unknown countermeasures. Psychic echoes of terror from the Lotan kill node. One Trinvok mind died mid-sync, taking its sibling with it in screaming agony. Vrel stared at the council's main screen. The last visual was a freeze frame. A woman in a robe and slippers sipping tea, with blood on her cheek and not a single strand of hair out of place. Cellari whispered. She was waiting for them. She knew, Vrel hissed. She invited it. Then came the message. A simple hollow transmission. Mira Holt's face. Calm. Framed by gentle lamplight and distant thunder. Good evening, members of the council, she said. I hope this message finds you intact. Regretfully, I must inform you that your mercenaries failed. Dreadfully. The Lotan's coilkin will not be returning. I suspect they won't miss her. No reply. None was expected. She continued. This is not a declaration of war. Humanity abhors violence. She paused just long enough. But we're very good at it. Then the smile sharpened ever so slightly. A little history lesson, if you'll indulge me. When humans first gazed at the stars, we were already experts in two things, making tea and ending problems. We like to offer the former. We're exceptional at the latter. A beat. The video flickered. Her tone softened. Next time, send a diplomat. Or flowers. Or a really convincing apology. Otherwise, her eyes gleamed. We'll assume this was a test. And we do like to pass our tests. The feed ended. The room was silent. No one breathed. Finally, Vrel stood. He motioned to the aides in the corner. Bring me every file on her. Everything we erased, everything redacted. I want to know what the humans buried. But sir, a young aide asked, what if it's classified even for them? Then we find what's missing and pray it's not still breathing. Back on Seraphis 3, Mira walked the quiet halls of the outpost, sipping from her thermos. Her aides greeted her with sideways glances and nervous nods. She returned each one with warmth, as if the walls weren't still humming with recent death. She stopped by the command board. A blinking notification waited. Incoming transmission request. Classified priority. Red Phantom. She tapped open. A voice filtered through, old, grizzled, familiar. They tried again, didn't they? They did, Mira replied, calm as moonlight. The voice chuckled. You always did draw attention. I'm tired of it, she said. They poke, and we play nice, and then they send monsters in the night. It's getting repetitive. You want us to come in? Not yet. I haven't finished my tea. A pause. Then the voice lowered. They're going to dig up your codename, Mira. They already have, she said, stepping out onto her balcony again. Below, The sky was just starting to light with pale gold. Somewhere, wolves howled. Earth imports, used to patrol the forest. She watched the stars blink above. Let them remember, she whispered. The name they buried. The name they feared. In the distance, alarms began to stir again. Mira took another sip. Then she smiled. The wind outside howled softly, threading its way through the pine-like trees on the edge of the military outpost nestled in the mountains of Seraphis. 3. The stars above shimmered as though they held their breath. Inside the command complex, General Mira Holt adjusted her kettle with the patience of a monk and the ease of someone who had ended empires before breakfast. The faint clink of porcelain echoed through the silent mess hall, empty but for her and a dimly humming light overhead. Her tea was a jasmine blend tonight. She preferred it before blood was spilled. Colonel Reyes stood nearby, arms folded tight across his chest, eyes scanning the hollow table readout on his wrist. We confirmed insertion. G-class drop, low orbit, tight formation. 4 minutes ago. Mira gently placed her tea strainer aside and exhaled through her nose. How many? 6. 1 vapor entity. 4 kinetic bodies. 1 loton. He hesitated. They're good. They've already bypassed 4 security rings. Of course they have, she said, sipping without urgency. They're the best money can buy. Possibly favors, too. This wasn't cheap. I can bring up the inner barriers, Reyes offered, already halfway to the console. No. He stopped, fingers hovering. Let them think they're winning, she said. That's the trick, Reyes. Always let them believe their knives are sharp until they press it to your throat and realize you've already stolen their lungs. Reyes's mouth twitched. Remind me never to challenge you to chess. You already have. That's why I let you live. Down in the lower halls, the temperature dropped by 3 degrees. The vapor entity drifted like a malignant thought, leaving the faint smell of formaldehyde and despair in its wake. Doors that should have resisted opened without protest. Lights flickered not for malfunction, but interference. It was sentient dread in gaseous form. No bones, no face, just pressure and whispers. It found the inner sanctum. It found her chair. Empty. And then the lights died. Elsewhere, the Lotan assassin slithered silently down the greenhouse corridor. The path smelled of mint and iron-rich soil. The earth clung to her skin, wet and pulsing. She moved past tomato vines, brushing leaves that reacted to her touch with curious photosynthetic flutters. Something rustled behind her. She spun, blades drawn, only to face a set of gardening shears, hanging from a hook. Harmless. She exhaled and turned back. That was her mistake. A shape emerged from the dark beside her. Not a charge. Not a strike. A step. Slow. Deliberate. The faint scuff of a boot on tile. Myra's voice followed, quiet, curious. Do you like basil? The Lotan lashed out. Mira caught the blade. The assassin had 6 arms. Mira broke 2 before the first scream. On the second floor, the Trinvok twins moved in unison, their gait perfectly mirrored, expressions cold. They communicated in pulses of thought, sharp, precise, predictive. They saw the corridor split. Left or right? Left. Their sync decision meant certainty. They moved through airlocks like liquid shadow. Their prey was supposed to be cornered. But the map changed. The corridor looped. Wrong materials, wrong wall markings. One twin blinked. The other didn't. A piano note echoed down the hall. Wrong again. They turned. The wall behind them now bore a single phrase in Old Terran script. Do you miss your other half yet? Only one of them had read English. The one who didn't drop dead 3 seconds later, neural stem severed by something they couldn't perceive. The survivor screamed once. In the mess hall, Mira stirred her tea and sniffed. A bit much on the jasmine, she murmured. Next time I'll go with a rose blend. Reyes stared at the monitor, which now flickered static. They're dropping. Not by force. No alarms triggered. No fire. Just lights out. Mira shrugged. That's the thing with ghosts. Once you figure out how to speak their language, they make terrible assassins. 3 left, Reyes said. including the vapor. That one's trickier, she admitted, but only because it thinks it's clever. Deep in the compound, the vapor entity drifted through the command archive vaults, searching for body heat signatures. None registered. No movement. Only one thing stood in the room, a rocking chair. Old. Handmade. Hardwood, possibly oak. And it moved. Back. And forth. Back. And forth. The vapor hovered before it, forming a questioning spiral of haze. No trace of its target. Then the chair stopped. Not gradually. Snapped still. The vapor backed away. Too late. The walls lit up with a lattice of ultraviolet light, brief, silent, precise. The entity convulsed, then screamed in colors only predators could hear. Within 5 seconds, it was scattered vapor on the floor, absorbed by an ancient Terran air filter, Model 306A. No scream reached the surface, but a message appeared on Reyes's feed. 4 down. 2 confused. Mira sipped. She still writes beautifully. You had her write the kill logs? She likes flair. In the main control chamber, the final 2 assassins regrouped, Zervath blade dancers, each the product of selective genetic refinement and post-birth augmentation. They had survived the siege of Velhar, the Gorshal Maw, and the Brel conflicts. But they had never fought humans alone. Their optics filtered light in 1,000 spectrums. Their weapons were monomolecular. Their exosuits could survive plasma storms. What they couldn't process was silence. Real silence. The kind that seemed engineered, crafted. One whispered to the other in coded taps. Do you see her? No. She's watching. She can't be everywhere. That's when they realized the light was wrong. It came from beneath, not the ceiling. The floor tiles flickered and shifted. They were standing on a projection. The true floor was elsewhere. The illusion dropped. They were in a glass box, and Mira was above, looking down. Calm. Barefoot. She spoke through the calm. Do you know why we built this room? Not for defense. Not for meetings. It's an aquarium. But not for fish. For lessons. One Zervath lunged upward, slashing the air. The glass held. The other scanned for weak points. Mira pressed a button. The lights within the box dimmed, then bloomed in a slow, pulsing red. They say human soldiers are feral, she said, voice smooth. Primal. It's a flattering lie. We're not beasts. We're apex tacticians with a taste for theater. Gas filled the box, an old earth blend, once used in prison riots. Not lethal, just persuasive. The Zervath pounded the walls as their suits began to fail. Their shrieks were swallowed by Myra's next words. You didn't come to kill me. You came to audition, and you failed. 10 minutes later, the base was quiet again. Reyes watched her as she stood at the observation deck, eyes on the horizon. The stars were coming back. Her expression didn't change, but something in her had shifted. You let them come, he said finally. Why? Mira didn't answer immediately. She let the silence hang. Then she turned to him. They needed to see what I am, what we are. This council, these species, they've been walking with sharpened sticks, poking the wrong bear. Tonight, I let them touch the fur. Tomorrow, they'll learn it had teeth. Reyes crossed his arms, then softened. You've changed. She glanced back at the stars. No, she said. I just remembered. He paused. What happens now? She smiled. Not cruel. Not even proud. Just honest. Now they dig. They'll chase ghosts, hunt files, whisper names they told each other were myths. And they'll find it. My codename. The one they erased. Baba Yaga. She gave him a look. Don't say it like that. Like it's fiction. I thought it was. I thought peace was, she replied. The console beeped. An alert from the diplomatic network. High-priority data pulse. Multiple council species rerouting spies. Increasing fleet readiness. Mira walked to her terminal and tapped a key. Another file appeared. Operation Red Snow. Status on standby. She looked over her shoulder. Brew more tea, Reyes. Something tells me we're going to have company. Outside, the wind carried the sound of distant thunder. And above, somewhere behind the blinking stars, fear had taken root. Not because they'd failed to kill her, but because they'd now learned who she really was. And it was far too late. The silence in the Galactic Council's emergency chamber was brittle, like ancient glass pressed under too much weight. The assassination squad's failure had been officially reported as irrecoverable. Unofficially, the survivors numbered 0. Across the Council's curved table of sovereign seats, representatives from 11 species sat in growing unease. Their robes were ceremonial, their voices clipped, but the room reeked of fear masked by formality. Senator Vrel, representing the Zervath Dominion, pressed both clawed hands against the polished, obsidian surface. His faceted eyes flicked toward the main holoscreen, which displayed only static. "We underestimated her," he hissed. "No," corrected Archon Cellari, her serpentine form coiled with poised grace. "We misclassified her. There's a difference." Ambassador Delos of the Trinvok scowled with both mouths. "She's human. They are erratic, yes. Brutish at times. But one woman could not dismantle an elite strike team in under 15 minutes. She didn't dismantle them," murmured a junior aide, barely audible. "She devoured them." The council chamber turned to the human ambassador, standing in the same gray suit as always, her expression politely amused. "Do you have something to share?" Vrel snapped. The ambassador folded her hands behind her back. "Only condolences. Don't test us." "I wouldn't dare," she replied, smile unmoving. "Testing implies uncertainty. We have none." Cellari's tongue flicked the air. "Enough verbal fencing. Give us answers. Who is General Mira Holt?" The ambassador nodded once. "You already know who she is." "You mean what she is?" A flicker of movement, a trace of a smirk. "I assure you, she's quite human. Just historically inconvenient." "Explain." Instead, the ambassador lifted a small device and activated a classified transmission file. The holoscreen sputtered, then cleared. A document appeared, ancient by galactic standards. Language, Earth English, with deep red annotations in Terran military codex. One word stood out, larger than the rest. Codename, Alibaba YJ. Whispers rippled through the chamber. Some delegates leaned forward. Others sat back as if scorched. "Is this supposed to frighten us?" scoffed Delos. "No," said the ambassador. "It's supposed to help you understand why fear is no longer optional." A second file opened, blurred footage, old and grainy. Earth terrain. A battlefield, silent save for wind and smoldering wreckage. Bodies of non-human troops scattered like confetti. No movement. No resistance. Then, a figure walked through the smoke. Unarmored, hair unbound, holding a weapon in one hand and a child in the other. Mira Holt. The same face. The feed paused. "That footage is from the Yensari massacre," Cellari whispered. "No," corrected the ambassador, voice now chilled. "That was the name you gave it. We called it the last warning. The Yensari invaded Earth's lunar colonies without provocation. We retaliated. Mira led a Black Flag detachment that reclaimed the colony in 91 minutes. No prisoners. Minimal civilian casualties. One child extracted alive." Vrel's mandibles clicked. "One. The one they used as leverage," she said. "He was 7. Carried an Earth flag the whole time." Delos folded his hands. "Why was her record sealed?" "Because we wanted peace," the ambassador said quietly. "Peace demanded forgetting her name." "Why now?" "Because you tried to kill her." The room fell still. A Zervath intelligence officer, Clor, emerged from the shadows. His holographic lens flicked through data streams with uncomfortable speed. "We traced the code name across a dozen pre-council operations. All redacted. But the common markers are clear. Unpredictable tactical brilliance, psychological warfare, and surgical cruelty when provoked." He tapped the interface again. A map appeared, dozens of points marked in crimson. "These are not human victories," he said. "They are anomalies. Cases where logic failed. Enemy forces surrendered after hallucinations, paranoia spikes, unexplained losses. The same pattern. She doesn't destroy armies. She hollows them." She's a ghost, Cellari said. No, the ambassador corrected. She's what humans tell their children about when they're ready to stop being afraid of ghosts. Why that name? The Los asked. Baba Yaga? The ambassador tilted her head. Old Terran folklore. A witch in the woods. Sometimes kind. Sometimes monstrous. Lived in a house that walked on chicken legs. Ate the wicked. Tested the brave. A contradiction in fangs. Clore continued his report. We believe she was activated during the siege of Eltros. She served in Shadow Division Black 43. Her handlers were terminated or disappeared. She doesn't have a chain of command. She is the command. The holoscreen blinked again, this time, a message direct from Myra's outpost. A recording. Mira sat before a desk, sipping from a ceramic mug. Her hair was up. Behind her, the sky blazed in lavender twilight. Her expression was calm, almost grandmotherly. Hello again, she said softly. No one moved. I know by now you've realized your mistake. The team you sent? Brave, talented, quiet. But unfortunately, they entered a place where stories live. And stories, when cornered, do not end gently. She took another sip. You may think I overreacted. You may think I enjoyed it. I assure you it's worse than that. I was bored. One delegate stood. This is psychological warfare. Yes, Mira continued, as if hearing him. It is. And it works best on those who assume they're immune. She leaned forward. You don't fear humanity because of our numbers, or our weapons, or our alliances. You fear us because we know what you think of us, and we let you believe it. You call us primitive, emotional, reckless. You mock our chaos. You try to dissect our stories. She tapped the table gently. But we are a species forged in contradiction. We cry at music and laugh in war zones. We send poets to the stars and teach orphans to fire rifles. You mistook our kindness for weakness, our culture for naivety. She smiled, warm, almost sweet. You didn't send assassins to kill a general. You sent them into a test. One you failed. Badly. The screen went black. Silence again. Cellari shifted her coils. What does she want? The ambassador let the question hang in the air. Peace. Security, and an apology, public, sincere, and written in every language represented in this chamber. That's extortion, Vrel barked. No, she said. That's mercy. The Low stood, sneering. We won't bow to one human. You don't have to bow, she replied. You just have to stop pretending she isn't holding a knife behind your back and a pen in her other hand. Clore stepped forward again, voice heavy. There's more. Another image appeared. A file titled Red Snow. Operation Parameters. Contingency Enforcement. Status. Dormant. Codename Baba Yaga. Trigger. External Assassination Attempt on Asset. Auto-Response Protocol. Begin. Red Snow, Clore said, was designed by humans in case someone tried what we just did. It's a fail-safe. It's a trap, Cellari breathed. It's a net, said the ambassador. And you walked into it with a smile. The chamber descended into argument. Half the council demanded war. The other half demanded retreat. A few suggested exile. Exile for Mira. Exile for humanity. Anything to delay whatever door they had accidentally kicked open. Above it all, the human ambassador walked out, hands folded, smile intact. She passed a Lotan servant in the hall and handed her a small box of chocolates. A gift, she said kindly. From General Holt. She made them herself. You may want to eat them before the hour is out. The servant stared after her, uncertain if she'd just been complimented or threatened. Back in her quarters, Mira stood on the balcony again. The outpost beneath her was quiet. No blood now. Just frost on the walkways and the smell of pine. Colonel Reyes joined her, holding 2 mugs. She sent the recording. Yes, he said, handing 1 mug over. Also mentioned she used old footage from the Eltros campaign. Minor edits, just to make sure they really start digging. She nodded and blew steam off her tea. They know your codename now, he said. Good. You think that's wise? No, she admitted. But it's necessary. What happens when they panic? She took a long sip, then turned her gaze skyward. Panic is part 1. Paranoia is part 2. By part 3, they'll either kneel or burn their own worlds trying to find me. And part 4. She smiled. Part 4 is tea. With guests. They watched the stars together. Somewhere, light blinked from council ships repositioning. Emergency meetings began. Alliances frayed. Spies traded names in whispers they didn't understand. And on a distant diplomatic outpost with frost-touched windows and human laughter drifting through the corridors, a woman with the codename Baba Yaga prepared her guest list. It would be a very long night. In the cold black of space, the council fleet gathered. 59 ships, 7 species, 1 trillion credits in stealth tech, siege platforms, and war-hardened soldiers. They orbited like sharks around the glowing station known as Unity Spire, a human diplomatic hub repurposed as the face of peace. Until today. Today, they'd come for blood. In the lead vessel, Vrel stood on his bridge, mandibles tight with determination. This is not war, he reminded his officers. This is a correction, a surgical strike. Remove the infection before it spreads. He didn't believe his own words. Not anymore. But belief had become irrelevant. There were too many dead, too many whispers in the lower decks. Assassins vanishing without a trace. Diplomatic pressure twisted into psychological chokeholds. And then the codename, Baba Yaga. The name had no translation in most council tongues. It wasn't a designation. It was an invocation. Soldiers who never feared plasma or vacuum now feared a woman in slippers who made tea. But Vrel had committed. He had approved the second strike. Not a team this time. Not blades and shadows. A fleet. Humanity had rejected their warning, after all. And when diplomacy failed, force must follow. That was the council's way. He gave the order. The armada moved. Inside Unity Spire, Mira Holt watched them approach. Her gaze calm, back straight. Around her, the command staff remained composed, silent, precise. They all wore civilian uniforms. No insignias. No medals. Just the quiet steel of people who had seen too many wars to bother dressing for them anymore. Colonel Reyes stood at her side. They've committed. Sensors confirm full forward sweep. Disperse pattern, like they're expecting orbital resistance. They want to look cautious, not scared, she said, folding her arms. They look like prey. Mira turned from the viewport and walked to the central terminal. With one gesture, the walls displayed a full tactical map. The entire sector lit up. It didn't just show Unity Spire, it showed everything. Every ship, every movement, every trace of intelligence gathered across the last year. She nodded once. Activate Phase 3. Reyes didn't hesitate. Codeword. Winter. In 57 human-controlled outposts, long dormant beacons lit up. Across 5 council colonies, preceded communication bugs triggered fabricated distress signals. Dozens of council warships received ghost transmissions from within their own enave cores. Some messages warned of civil unrest. Others claimed mutiny. A few referenced her name. Fleet command fractured before the first missile was launched. Mira stood still, letting it unfold. Time to detonation? She asked. 13 minutes, Reyes replied. She nodded. That gives them time to think. Think what? That they chose this. Council vessels began veering off course. A Trinvok battlecruiser collided with a Zervath corvette. Not from attack, from confusion. Bridge crews reported falsified orders. Internal systems relayed phantom commands. Firewalls melted under human-coded viruses disguised as friendly software updates. Unity Spire, sitting in the middle of this swarm, glowed brighter. Not a fortress. Not yet. But its walls were thicker than they looked. Inside, Mira moved through the halls like gravity belonged to her. She passed officers she'd trained, agents she'd rescued. One janitor who had once served in covert psyops. Everyone nodded. Everyone knew. There was no panic. Only the quiet buzz of long-laid plans sliding into motion. Reyes followed. Tell me the truth. How long have we been prepping for this? since they invited us into the council. Before the assassination attempt, before we sent our first diplomat." He paused. "You expected betrayal? I expected pattern recognition. They've treated every rising species the same. Suppress, redirect, eliminate." She shrugged. "We just got here faster." "And the trap?" Her lips curved. "They thought it was a strike. It was bait. We let them come. We needed them too." Reyes exhaled. "We built a war fortress and called it a peace station." "No," Mira said. "We built both. And we told the truth. They just didn't listen." Alarms echoed through the council fleet. Dozens of subsystems crashed. Power grids flickered. Navigation arrays looped. Artificial gravity reversed in a handful of lower decks. Troops spun helplessly. Commanders barked orders that never reached subordinates. In the chaos, a transmission reached all council vessels. Visual only. Myra's face. Calm. Backlit by stars. She wore no uniform. No weapon. Just a shawl, and a look that made the silence unbearable. "You came for war," she said softly. "I offer clarity instead." She gestured to the backdrop, Unity Spire, serene and unarmed. "You believed we would hide, that we'd panic, that we would beg for mercy you never once showed." Behind her, the spire's walls began to shift, slowly unfolding. Defensive platforms emerged from civilian structures. Antennae extended like insect limbs. What once looked like decorative towers became magnetic lance arrays. "You mistook civility for cowardice." Her tone never rose. "It didn't need to. We're not proud of what we've built. We hope not to use it. But we've read your histories. We remember ours. And unlike you, we take threats personally." Several council admirals tried to jam the signal. None succeeded. Mira kept speaking. "This isn't retaliation. This is demonstration. So the next time you think about violence, you remember how it feels to be hunted. You remember the cost of disrespect. And you remember my name." The screen shifted. A word appeared in every tongue simultaneously. Alibaba Yaga. It wasn't translated. It wasn't explained. It was left there, a shadow that didn't need a body to fall across them. Then Unity Spire powered up. It didn't fire. It pulsed. A low-frequency shockwave, harmless to matter, but catastrophic to council systems. Anything integrated with human tech suffered immediate overload. Ships went dark. Command decks blacked out. AI assistants screamed and died mid-sentence. Vrel's ship spun, without propulsion. His officers clawed at consoles that sparked with false heat. He turned to his second. "Evacuate. All ships. Now." Too late. Unity Spire launched. Not weapons. Transmissions. Hundreds. Each one a public dossier of council war crimes, secret betrayals, market manipulations, assassinations, failed coups. Documents only accessible through files humanity should not have had. Yet here they were, broadcast to every unaligned world, to every neutral system, to every people the council had stepped on and hoped would forget. Mira watched the skies flicker as the message spread. Stars shimmered with truth, and she waited for the scream. It came, not over comms, in person. A council gunship, disabled, careened toward Unity Spire on a last desperate trajectory. Suicide strike. No chance to redirect. Shields. Reyes asked. Mira shook her head. Let them try. The ship neared impact, then stopped, frozen, hovering, tractor fields. Hundreds of them, synced with human precision. The gunship sat motionless, weapons cold. Mira walked outside, onto the observation platform. She faced the ship, face to face, human to beast. And she smiled. Not kindly, not cruelly, but with finality. You sent monsters, she said, her voice echoing. We sent mirrors. The gunship shut down entirely. The war ended in the silence. No shot fired. No lives taken. Just realization. They hadn't invaded a backwater race. They had poked something older, wiser, and infinitely more dangerous. The next day, the council met in emergency session. There were no demands from humanity. No ultimatums. Just an invitation. A new treaty. Written in human language first. Translated into theirs. Rewritten again. And, at the bottom, the signature of General Mira Holt. Codename Baba Yaga. Grell signed last. With shaking claws. Later, in a quiet garden beneath earth-native willows on Unity Spire, Mira sipped tea while birds chirped through the artificial morning. Reyes joined her. "You won." She nodded. He asked, "Was it worth it?" She looked at her reflection in the tea. "No. But," she smiled. "Now they know the rules." The wind blew soft across the spire. Above, the stars turned. And far across the galaxy, where plans were made and daggers drawn in secret, her name still echoed. Not in fear, but in warning. The trap had always been theirs. They just hadn't realized they'd been walking into it since the beginning. And now the door had closed behind them.